Welcome to Unscripted Let's Talk, episode 15. This is Mary Eggleston, and today we are going to talk about the rules for parents in divorce and how to best come through for your kids and create a good, nurturing environment for them, even in a very difficult situation. I'm here with Todd Herrboldt, whom I've known for a long time. And as I was saying to Todd, my memory of going through a divorce many, many years ago was that what struck me was that anybody can get married, but you really better grow up if you're going to get divorced, because it takes a tremendous amount of maturity to not really, become bitter, lose yourself, and certainly it takes a lot of maturity to do the right thing for your kids. So I am really happy to be here with you, Todd. And so I'd like you to say a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, thanks for having me, Mary. I have been at Family Service for about 23 years. Been in the field of social work and direct counseling for probably 25 years altogether. So a lot of work initially with families and children. And so that's really what drove me to want to talk about this issue, which was to really shape appropriate, healthy walk in and through divorce. As you explained, that maturity makes such a big difference and responsibility to walk that path in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm. And in a way that is truly going to be of help to your kids in an incredibly difficult, painful event in their lives. And, kids are in this situation through no fault of their own. And of course, what children need as they grow up, Todd and I talk all the time, incidentally, at lunch and in the conference room. And so I know that he and I are of one mind on this. Kids need parents to have it together. It takes everything you've got as a kid to grow up. It takes all of your energy, all of your time, everything. And so parents need to not, no matter what is going on for the parents, you need to find a way to not get in the way of your child's development. And divorce certainly is this painful event for a child. And parents can get pretty self-involved.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think one of the reasons why I started to do a little more work with the families of divorced families was because of what the kids were telling me. And I'll never forget one of the first times that I met with a kid who said that when things started to happen and he would hear the conflicts, he actually set up a tape recorder that he had in his parents' bedroom so that he could find out and figure out what the truth was, because he would hear so many different stories from his parents. So it drove me to know a couple of things. One is that kids will always know or always want to find out what the truth is, and if they get put in the middle, that's typically what they set up to do. So if you start that way, you're going to probably continue the process. If a child doesn't recognize that they have to be in that position, they won't go there. So it's really about initially defining some rules that helps to establish a sanctity of raising children.
So what are some of the things that you would tell parents that they need to do, things you wish they would do when they're in a divorce situation?
Yeah, I think it starts out with really being able to be fair with each other. And that comes from acceptance that they are a parent and that they will continue to be the parent. It really doesn't matter how much it gets defined in a court setting. As long as they can agree that the other parent is going to be involved, then there should be a way to accept the other parent's role. And so part of that is just not talking badly. That's one of the first things you say is don't say bad things about the other parent. And I think it makes such a big difference, in particular if it's in front of children. But certainly, just to get used to the idea that that's not what we're going to do here. You get used to it, and then it becomes a habit.
Right. And sometimes parents may not say bad things, but that you can indicate a lot of bad things with facial expression or just sounds like, oh yeah, sure, oh, yeah, or I don't want to hear about it.
Right.
You know, any number of things like that. Oh, that sounds just like your dad to me. Well, I didn't say anything bad about him.
Yeah, you know, it was interesting that you brought that up, because one of the things that is very consistent, if the kids feel this, really a lot of animosity from one parent to the other, and they look like, because somebody has said, family, relatives, friends, you look just like your father. Well, if that's the issue that your mother is having with your dad is initiated by the fact that you look like him, and in reality it becomes a very big struggle of how you manage how you feel about yourself even. So self-esteem is affected.
So I know mom hates dad,
Yep.
and I look just like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in a bad spot. Or I've seen it the other way too. I've had women who, in fact, I'm thinking of a woman right now that I have worked with, and she looks like her mother. And her dad absolutely just hated her mother. And she said that growing up, this all got projected onto her.
Well, I think
He couldn't go off on her mother anymore, but he could go off on her.
Right.
So she's 9 years old, having somebody just treat her horribly. Her mother had had an affair. She's being treated like she had betrayed him, and she's his little girl.
Yeah, and I think it's like a natural order of things. Like if there's two children, one is going to look more like dad, and one is going to look more like mom, right? So it's just and whether they do or not, that's just kind of how people go with it, or their personality and things like that. So if that person, in theory, one of the parents felt that they were violated by that relationship or by what happened, then that's really is something that those kids will wear, almost like it becomes part of who they are and how they feel about themselves. So they feel they're stuck in the middle emotionally, and then wanting to take care of that parent, which is the other part of it. You end up taking care of the one that you feel got hurt or is hurt the most.
Right. And then you've lost your childhood yet again. You know, kids will step up and say, let me be there for you. I'll be your friend. I'll be your confidant. I will try to absorb all of this. And as a parent, it's so crucial that you remember that, no, I'm here to take care of you. I mean, parents need to go find a friend, a therapist, somebody to talk to, but you don't take your child in as that person, filling them up with your problems or difficulties. But something else you said, Todd, where the child looking like one parent or the other. And I think about how, so someone gets traumatized in their marriage because of a betrayal through, I don't know, alcoholism, an affair, any number of things, lies, deceit, and they're triggered by how their child looks.
Yes.
And so they're having these like responses. What would you recommend?
It's a really good example. I'll never forget, I had somebody come in many years ago who talked about that the dad was never involved in their son's life. He turned, got into his adolescent years, early adolescent years, and she described him as the spitting image of his father. Looks, behaviors, all that. Never lived with his dad, never was around his father. So it really was, for her it was doing some work. It was, you need to do some work outside of the work that we're doing as a family to work through those feelings and emotions that you had. Otherwise, they come out sideways, as we say. And it's driven by this emotion that is still there from the potential lost relationship. The relationship was bad or difficult or traumatic, and then it becomes a part of the relationship that you have with your child. So those are
Yeah.
so
So
hard.
people need to find a way to reinterpret the trigger itself.
Yes.
You got to reinterpret it as I've got to remember the good things about this person. You know, I said to somebody the other day, you know, the person that, because their soon-to-be ex really has lost himself into alcoholism and self-absorption. And that's not who he was when she married him. And to help her see that the man that you're divorcing is not the same man that you married, and to hold on to all of the good that you know is in there under that illness somewhere, because you also need to communicate the good to your child about their father or their mother. You know, to find that, you know, they're very, very smart. They're very, very funny. They're athletic. Any number, but to remember that yourself will really help, I don't know, diminish that trigger.
Well, I think, you know, back to what you said initially was about growing up. That's a part of maturing and growing up. If it shouldn't stop at any point in time, but it can, and it does for different reasons, as you've talked about before in some of the other podcasts, but also being able to walk that through helps us to focus on the positive. And it's the other part of this whole thing is with these kids, they spend so much time in a negative environment, presuming that it's about them and that they're a part of that. And so, you know, it just goes down the list of, you know, what do you talk about with kids? You know, do you tell them how you feel? Do you talk about, you know, child support, financial issues? We're going to have to move all of that stuff, which I think needs to be really filtered almost entirely.
Uh-huh.
Just the reassurance to say to kids, it's going to be okay. We're going to figure it out. It's not going to be the same. It's going to be a little different, but we'll always figure it out.
Yeah.
And we'll always, you know, come to a conclusion that's going to be the best that we can do. So as long as kids are reassured and you follow through with that in your own personal life, which is, I think, again, back to that part where you do your work and you become you become okay in it yourself, which so many parents miss. I've said this, and I've said this to people, and I kind of want to qualify it when I say it. It's like you're not as good of a parent right when you're in the middle of divorce as you are when you're starting to recover. And people take that kind of offensively, but I think it's realistic to say that.
That's absolutely true. One of the best things that was said to me in the midst of my divorce was an attorney friend of mine said, "Look, Mary, you're really suffering right now." And I was, because divorce is extremely painful. I don't care what the media says where they act flippant about it. It is extremely painful. You know, somebody who takes their vows seriously never expects to be in that circumstance. Never. And what she said was, you need to maximize your kids' time in daycare or school or programs, because those people, they're functioning, they're doing okay. And my kids were young, so it was maximize their time at the daycare and allow your kids to get from people who are okay what they can get until you can get back on your feet.
Yeah, I think so much of it is defined by that. You know, if what we want a child to grow up is to not define themselves by the fact that their family was divorced and it just set off this series of problematic things for them. So it's really, the goal is to reassure them and to continue that path that's about moving forward in life and making good decisions and recovering and working it through. And because, you know, the stereotypes and all those other things, what's the first thing that people say to you when they give you their family history? Well, my parents were divorced. So almost the very first thing. It's not, oh, by the way, It's almost, that's how we define ourselves. And I think kids look at that, no matter how many people around them that are divorced, they define themselves as being from a divorced family. And what we want them to be able to do, and that's what I think parents can say to their kids is that's, we have two families. We have two families. We still have a functioning family. We're not just a divorced family.
Actually, what I said to my kids is, we're still a family. Your dad and I don't live together, but the four of us are still a family. Now, your dad will probably remarry. I probably will too. And we'll simply be adding to our family. But we are still a family.
Yeah.
And so I took it one step further. Maybe not everybody can do that, but it created a safety and a security that we're not broken. We are not broken, and you are not broken. I'm not broken. This is not about us being broken.
And I think it's, I've said it many times to people, is this family, and I think that's for the kids. We're not doing it for us. We're doing it for the kids, because when they hear that, they go, oh, okay. So if someone else, so they don't have to, which happens, they don't have to dislike or feel bad about the step-parent that comes in the picture. That they can actually have permission from both parents, which is another big rule,
big thing.
I
Can
think.
you love? Is it okay for
Yeah.
me to like or even love a step-parent? And people get real weird about that, worried that they're going to be replaced as the father, replaced as the mother.
Right.
You're never going to be replaced as the mother and father. Every day in my office, and I'm pretty sure in yours, is Happy Mother's Day, Happy Father's
Yeah.
Day. They're not there to talk about.
Right.
Really, most people don't come in to talk about anybody but their true mother and father. Now, it's a real bonus if you like or love the step-parent. And isn't that really what you want for your kids? Is you want your ex to re-partner with somebody who's good to your kids? Of course that's what you want. But people move into this fear and this competition.
Yeah, I think that's, it was one of the things that I read just recently talked about what fear does. And I think that is such an important piece to that in particular, which is that your kids might see someone else more, like they'll love them or care about them more, when in reality that's never the issue. It's never up for, because when that gets challenged, the kids will always side up with their family, with their parents. And so you just they don't need to be put in that position though. So I, it's part of it is saying that as we make it through, and it depends on their ages, of course, as we walk this transition, then we can kind of reinforce that things are going to change as time goes on. But if it starts out in a positive way, then those things will transition in a positive way. So it's really acceptance of those other people coming in their life. And all of a sudden they go from 4 grandparents sometimes to 8.
It can be very, very positive.
So,
and my hope would be that anybody that you would repartner with, remarry, would be somebody that you truly trust with your kids, and that you also expect your kids to be very respectful of them. That moves into the whole step-parenting thing. One of the things, another thing that I see is that whole thing of I'm going to marry this new woman and then she'll be the mother to my kids. No, she won't. Or I'm going to find this man and he's going to be the father to my kids. Nope. Your kids already have a father. Your kids already have a mother. They can be an important figure in your kids' lives. But you're not going to replace. That's not going to happen. And to put a child in that kind of emotional place, I've even worked with families where people come in and they'll say, my child is being encouraged to call this other woman mom. And I think, oh, come on.
right.
Don't do that.
Yeah. No, I think and the kids don't want to do it, and they will feel guilty and somewhat shamed. In particular, if they come home and then see their mother and have to say that came up.
Mm-hmm.
Most people will not admit that that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, culturally, I mean, I just look at it from a culture's perspective. If I had anybody that I come in contact with, I take a position of, who am I? Am I a father, grandfather, a big brother, kind of developmentally? Like, these people, this is not your mom, but she is a woman who may be
Cares
a
about
mom,
you,
or
right.
who cares about you, and can enhance your life and improve the quality of it, because she brings different things in, and or vice versa. So it's really about acceptance of a role that we take, and not feeling like we have to take over. And I think if people accept that, I think it goes much smoother.
I really like what you just said, Todd. It's what you're saying is that take that step out and figure out, who am I in this story? Who am I in this story? And that's really with any number of circumstances. When you feel really confused and all wrapped up and overwhelmed, wait a minute, who am I in this story? And who's everybody else? How's everybody else functioning? And to remember that, boy, that's important.
Yeah, I think I just, when I think about it, I just look at what is my role within any sort of environment. Like, you go to a school and you talk to a school or anything like that. You know, they're looking at you and they're seeing you as what? A healthy adult, a father figure,
Somebody.
I mean, they're going to
losing
project
it,
that on you
yelling,
anyway.
screaming, a lunatic. You don't want to be that person.
So you could be the one that they go, every time we talk, they get angry. So those are things that I think, if from the start, if the other part I give the responsibility to is the parents to teach the step parents that this is their family, and that family was there first, and that will be how it's handled. So communication between mom and dad,
and lots of respect.
in a respectful way,
Yeah.
without belittling and diminishing and minimizing and aggressing people with subtle comments. And that comes from everything that we do with phone calls. You know, people talk to their parents or siblings or friends, and if kids overhear those conversations, boy, it impacts. And I've heard them.
Don't do
I've
that.
heard them.
Don't be talking on the phone and
Yeah.
saying, all these awful, ugly things. Your kids are listening. They
Yeah.
are listening.
Yeah, and the ironic part of that, not just literally, but they know it. It surprises me how hypersensitive, hyper alert, let me say it that way, kids get when their parents are going through divorce. And how much their awareness comes out. So they're looking for stuff. And when they don't hear it, they go, oh, okay, so then they can relax. We want calm kids, right? Not anxious kids.
Right.
So they calm down, feel better. It's hard, but everybody
But the
seems...
sun keeps coming up
Yep.
the next day and everything's okay. You know, when people tell me, okay, you know, like a couple comes in and they know they need to get divorced, and they'll say, so how do we go about this? We don't want to hurt our kids. And they truly don't. They're in pain, but they don't want to hurt their kids. And I'll say, you tell them, and you're going to move through all the emotions with the kids, listening, and some of them are going to have really big reactions. But the really great thing is that you're not moving out. You know, that's some people think that, when you get divorced, you move out right away. And
Right.
there are people who do it this very dramatic way and blah, blah, blah. But the great thing is you stay in the house and the kids experience that the sun comes up the next day. Oh, we're all still here. And for a period of time in the divorce, you're all still there. And then you slowly move into wherever it's going to transition to from there.
Right.
That's best case scenario. Sometimes
Right.
people can't do that. You know, we're not talking about the truly deeply toxic situations
Right,
where there's
right.
horrible physical abuse. That's another matter.
Correct.
But you don't have to add drama unnecessarily.
Yeah, exactly. So it becomes just, it piles on. It piles on to the issues that we're dealing with already. And if you can keep those things silent, like, why would you parent any different through divorce than you might through, if you weren't divorced? That we don't share the kind of things that make kids worry or become anxious, like money issues, our disagreements. We try to protect them and keep them safe and secure and ensure that things are okay. And then, we had this wonderful pandemic go through that challenged so many different things that we did and took us out of our routines and all that stuff. But we keep on reassuring that things will get better. Isn't it interesting? Things have gotten better. So that's just one of those things that kids learn, that predictability says it will get better.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get better. Things will change. Yeah, sometimes it's difficult. So here we've moved into a new phase in our life, which is what that is. So I think it's, when people can follow that protocol of just, let's not attack each other. Let's not go on.
And not just that, but also having expectations through the divorce. I still expect you to do well in school. I still expect you to carry your responsibilities. I still expect you to emerge into all of who you are to be.
No,
I see people decide, well, I'm just going to give them extra cookies and blah, blah, blah. No, don't do that. Keep things, as you're saying, the same. I've got this. I'm handling this. You get to live your life the same.
I know that's been said many times as well in settings where you're working with people, where you say to them, how long you've been divorced, and they'll say whatever length of time. And I said, sometimes you feel guilt about that. So has that affected your ability to discipline your children? Because this kid seems to be having all kinds of behavior issues. And because we feel sorry for. So it really gets to your point, feeling sorry for children is not something you want to get into a habit of, because they will ride that thing as long as they can and take advantage of that.
Yeah.
So it's like, give me a bunch of stuff.
What? I don't want anybody feeling sorry for me. I mean, that ick. Feeling sorry for, what does that mean about me? I'm a loser, I'm a victim, I can just go bleh. I mean, that really is not a helpful emotion. That's not a helpful way to feel towards anybody. Oh, I feel so sorry for you, Todd. And you just think, it's a weird feeling.
Well, and it might make, I think
you can have empathy,
yes,
compassion, understanding, give extra support. But see, here you are, drained, exhausted, and really, what do your kids need? They need more from you. So really, you need to go over whether if you have the friends to do it, if you have a pastor that you really like, or you need a therapist, you need a support group, you need people that you can do all of what you need to do with, so that you can give what you can give to your kids. But then what about family? Like, sometimes families get, the family of the people getting divorced, they get involved, where they decide they hate the other person. I'm going to hate him for you. I'm going to hate her. And so all this immature nonsense goes on. I mean, what can you say about that?
It kind of goes back to what we were talking about, the other pieces of how you communicate about the other parent. It's the same way, which is we don't do that. We have to learn how not to talk about people in a negative way in front of these kids. And, if that's something you need to do, go talk to a therapist, or go talk to, I think one of the best steps I've seen people make almost automatically, 100%, that if you go to one of those support groups, that from the very start, you will immediately start to realize and take care of your own needs. So it doesn't become about the kids, and they don't have to feel that sense of obligation. And two, you learn how to set boundaries. and setting those boundaries, which is for me not to say bad things about everybody or other people or other family members, because they were involved in the process of the divorce, which always occurs to some extent. So it's just really, I think, setting those boundaries from the very start, and it takes out the energy that drives the other person. I've never seen it get better when someone says, I'm never going to quit, or I'm not going to stop.
Yeah. I'm going to hate them forever.
Yep.
I want to destroy them. I want, it can be normal to have some of those feelings in the midst of your divorce, but really, you do need to release them.
Yes.
You really need to release those. Because that's not going to go well. I mean, if we have to give you a selfish motive, that's not going to go well for you. Because who is going to want to be with you if you're running around with all this negativity inside of you?
Yeah.
And health-wise, that'll eat you up too. So.
Right.
Yeah. The other tough thing is when parents tell me, they do have that good relationship with their kids. And so their kids will say, Mom said this about you. And it was really, and then she said this and this. And they need to tell that, they feel safe in telling the other parent that. And they'll say, I don't know how to respond. I don't want to say anything bad or negative. I don't want to be the confidant for my kids. And so what I suggest to them is you say, I'm just really sorry that your mom needed to say that. I'm really sorry that your dad needed to say that.
Yes.
I mean, you shouldn't have been drawn into that, and I'm sorry to hear that. Dad said you had an affair and blah, blah, blah. That's a lot of adult stuff, and I'm just really sorry that you were drawn into any of that. Well, is it true? Is it true? I mean, these are tough situations.
And in particular, some of the children, as they get older and they get to a certain age, and it's amazing to me how they can figure things out. But you just I keep directing, and I give them this sense of empowerment, which is it's okay for them to say, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to talk about Mom. I don't want to talk about Dad, depending on.
And so you would recommend to this parent saying to the child, it's okay for you to tell your dad you don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Because it's really not a discipline issue. It's not a disrespect or talking back, because it's really about gathering information or telling secrets. That was the other one. What's going on over at Mom or Dad's house?
Yeah.
Where were they last night?
I want you to spy on them.
Yeah.
Why don't you look into this? I worked with a woman who her dad encouraged her to go spy on her mother. And because she so wanted her father to love her, she did it.
Yeah, it's a sense of obligation.
And it's just an awful feeling for her now that she betrayed her mother on that level as she got older. These are the things. Don't do these things.
Right. Don't start, because I think that's to me it was the key is, I had a family I was working with, and I was starting to see this stuff develop, and I knew it was one or the other, and I'm not going to say male or female, but one was set out determined to really focus in on the affair, and then focus in on winning the battle of a custody dispute. And I was able to intervene very quickly and say, let's not do that. Let's stop this from the start. The kids love both of you. It's crystal clear that they love both of you, and they don't need to be a part of that. And it was...
And did this person listen to you?
And this person listened, and it became a very... there were still issues they had to resolve,
right.
Money, but the kids were taken out of the middle. And so all of a sudden, things got better, and I didn't see them anymore because
that's nice.
It's settled.
So what you're talking about is that, and it can be a toxic person who they're not going to listen to you when you say that to them, and they look to weaponize their children.
Right.
We're gonna turn you into a weapon, because the one way I can still hurt that other person is if I have the kids say horrible things to you and I just fill them with all of these awful thoughts. But what I've seen, and I'll bet you have too, is that later, as the kids get older, they walk away from the parent that
Yes.
encouraged them to do that. So
Exactly.
that will not pay off.
No.
That will not.
No. That was one of the things that I was, when I was preparing for this, I was reading about was people think that when you win initially, that's going to continue. In reality, if you win initially, you're probably going to end up losing more
You'll lose the
as
whole
the time
thing.
goes on. So it's very important to not define this as a competition.
Mm-hmm.
It's a we both win or we both lose process.
Mm-hmm.
And if people can look at that, because I don't think we think of that in mediation or in any discussion that we have. Our culture is kind of defining a win-lose kind of proposition. And in this setting, you don't want to do that.
Right.
It just
Yeah.
puts the kids right in the middle of it.
Which feeds into one of the the phrases that just drive me absolutely crazy is when I hear people say, my time. That's my time. That's your time. And I just think, ugh. And I tell people, look, this is your child's life all the time. You don't own the time. My time, your time. Well, they were cutting into my time, and I just think,
Right.
oh, those phrases make me so crazy.
Yeah, because in the end, it's interesting because as we were talking before, is that when you start this process, it continues. Everything kind of washes out in the end. You get a gain here, they get a gain there. It just kind of, as time goes on, there's a shift and everybody kind of gets more evened out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about each battle. So it's really about staying away from that. When you were talking about that, I was thinking, one of the most simple things to define here is that depending on the circumstance, even if it's, a lot of our divorces are 50-50, some can be any number of different options, even if it's every other weekend and one night a week. What do you think's happening? That amount of time, you're spending 3.5 days, they're gone 3.5 days. What do you think's going on? That's a lot of time.
Uh-huh.
And so it's the children are having that experience with the other parent.
Yeah.
And it should just be simply, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just experience.
Did you have fun? Did you have a good time? I mean, all of those things are important to say. Well, how was your time with your dad? Well, what did you guys do? Oh, that's so good. Blah, blah, blah. And if you're positive about it, they'll tell you everything and they'll just flow and it'll be easy. You don't have to turn it into this other nonsense. So, I also hear people, they prevent phone calls, they block visits, or the other extreme of calling all the time and interrupting, when the kids are, you're interrupting your child's life. Allow them to be where they are.
Well, and again,
certainly you can call and say, hi, how are you doing? Are you having a nice time? But you don't call. I worked with a situation where this man found a way online to do all these games with his son for hours at a time when he was at his mom's house.
Yeah.
It was absolutely, and they had to go to court and have a judge say, no,
right.
You don't get to do that. I mean, she had to go to court.
Yeah.
In order for this guy to knock it off. And then her son was, of course, angry with her.
Right.
Because he was convinced that this was a great thing that Dad had figured out and was doing. I mean, the poisoning of a child's mind it's just awful.
It goes back to the consistency of parenting, too. It's like, who's parenting? If you're parenting against the other parent, then that's going to be a problem. We talk about consistency back and forth. Here's one that comes up a lot. My son gets grounded he lost his Xbox, and now he's going over to the other person's house, and they're just going to let him play. So when we have a good relationship, when we stay together in a home, we say, cued in to mom or dad, we say, hey, by the way, John lost his Xbox. and then she catches him on it and she goes, hey, that's not okay. So therefore we can work together. And it's the same kind of process from the start, that when those things happen, and kids will learn how to play that game too.
Oh, that's right. And
they
not
love to
because
write
they're
it.
bad or evil. They're just people.
Yeah, they
They're
just like to play.
It's just their circumstance.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories is this woman who told me that her kids would either call her or call her ex-husband when they got really mad, thinking maybe they could drive a wedge in here. But these people brilliantly handled it. I mean, she would listen, and her son would say, yeah, I'm going to call dad. And so then he'd be saying blah, 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 blah. And she would hear her ex-husband say, well, what did you do?
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
really, your mom's a pretty reasonable person. So is there maybe a little something you did?
Yeah.
Huh? And never fell for it, nor did she. Because they would call her. And they just tried that for a short amount of time and realized, okay, that's not going to work.
Right.
And kids relax when they know that's not going to work. We don't have to try to be in charge. We don't have to try to run it. They've got this. And this is whether your parents are married or divorced.
Right.
They've got this. I can't work them against each other.
Well, and it's, it works that way with so many different situations, like a teacher or aftercare program where the child comes and reports the situation and go, well, let me think about this a little bit. You might not be telling me the truth here. That's possible, right? Yeah. Kids do sometimes.
Well, just tell me a little more about it. When it's when it's a teacher, you go, well, tell me a little more about this.
So you try to define it, and as you get closer to defining it, you realize that the child is shifting the story a bit to minimize their responsibility. And it's the same, it's going to work that way, in particular with these kinds of situations as well. I was doing nothing. So my first call is, I want to talk to the parent. And I want to say, if I'm the other parent, I want to go, wait, and I want to get their side of the story.
Right.
When I do that, then the child learns not to, and they go, whoa, these people, they're working together yet.
Yeah.
See, they're
we are still
wait
a family.
A minute. Yeah.
Oddly. We're a different formation, but we're still a family.
Right.
So basically, what we're saying is allow your child to love both of you and to see each of you, both of you, as much as possible. Be flexible, even when it isn't the schedule. And tune into what your child needs. And really, it's so much about love and respect. It's so much about that.
And I think if you start that way, it's harder to peel it back. Once it's started, we get kids trapped into it, and then they start to respond to that as well. But if we can also switch that out, and kids can go, wait a minute, okay, it's changed. Dad's not saying the same thing. He's changed, or mom's changed, and so then kids will respond, and pretty soon they'll go, oh, okay. I guess I can just be parented by both parents.
Right. And again, it's that feeling of, I can exhale. I don't have to try to be an adult when I'm a kid. I don't have to try to fix this. I don't have to throw a fit to show how much pain there is going on in this family. I don't have to become quiet and suicidal because I'm absorbing so much. I don't have to be mom's husband or dad's wife in terms of their emotional support. I can breathe. I can breathe. And so, so last thoughts, Todd.
Yeah, I think, if again, I'll go back to my statement I've said several times, which is if people accept that what's happening was between the parents, between mom and dad, it was marriage, or relationship, that's what really is the issue. And since we're not going to do that anymore, let's really focus our energies on working together to help our kids to have as seamless a transition as we can. And then they don't have to feel as anxious or feel victimized or walk around feeling like there's something wrong with them and their family.
Really good. So thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming and sitting here with me today.
It's
Yeah.
very
It's
good.
fun, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we had fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was good.
We did. It was good. So if you would like to email us, you can do that at unscriptedletstalk, which is all one word, at gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you. So remember, live your life with passion, intention, and purpose. Until next time.